G'day YouTubers, Pro Muso here. Today we're going to be looking at chords within a key and what makes them up, otherwise known as diatonic chords. Stick around. So what makes these chords work in Western music? The combination of the correct majors and minors, and what makes them sound like they fit? Well, it all comes back to the major scale, right? I'm going to try and explain this in a pretty simple way. And I'm going to take the key of G, right? So we all know that, you know, a G with a C and a D, down to an A minor. We all know that they work, right? But why do they work? Okay, well, it all comes down to the major scale. So the major scale is just a collection of notes, and it's that old familiar do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's the major scale, okay? So they're just notes. What do they mean? Okay, well, so let's forget about the notes in the sequence. For soloing purposes, let's forget about that for a second and let's look at them individually. So there's a formula with each individual note that is basically the root note of different chords. So every note within the major scale is a root note of a different chord. And if they're played in the right way, it creates a diatonic progression. Basically, that means that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notes, right? 8 notes, basically 7 notes because there's an octave, right? But if we look at all those, I'm just going to assume that you know the major scale at this point. If you don't know the major scale at this point, then maybe go back and learn it and then come back to the video. So basically, we've got 8 notes within the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now there is a formula that we have to follow for diatonic progressions. So let's take these one note at a time. Let's take the key of G. We've got different notes in there that make up the triad of G, but we're just looking at the root. So the first note of the major scale in G, we play a G major chord, right? If we look at the second note, do, re, the second note is the root note of the second chord within the diatonic progression. So the second note in G is an A, right? So we play a chord off the A. Now, the second interval of a major scale indicates that the chord that should be played is a minor. 1, G, major. 2, A is a minor. So we play A minor, right? That's the second position of the major scale. So the third interval of a major scale indicates that the chord should be minor. So it goes, first one is major, second one is minor, third one is minor, fourth one is major, fifth one is major, sixth one is minor, seventh one is a minor 7 flat 5, but we'll get to that, and the eighth one is major again, which is back to the octave, which means that they will be the same chord. So number 1, major. Second increment is a minor. 2 and 3 are minors. There's 3. That'll be a minor. So when I say minor, I mean we're going to base the chord from that note. And if 2 and 3 are minor, that means they're going to be minor chords. 1 is major, we play a major chord. 2 is minor, we play a minor chord off the root. So in this case in G, in G major scale, where the second interval is minor, so that's an A note, so we play a minor chord. The third interval is a B note, which means that we base that B note as the root of a minor chord. So it has to be B minor. Right, so we've got G major, A minor, B minor. You with me so far? The next note is the fourth interval of the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is always a major chord. So the fourth interval is a C, so we play a C chord. So far we've got G major, A minor, B minor, played up there or down here. If I'm following this, I'm going to follow the exact route. So we've got G major, A minor, B minor, the third, fourth interval is going to be a major chord. So we look at that, we go, it's a C note, so we play C major. Fifth is also a major, right? Fifth note there is D. So I hope you're with me so far. So we've got you start to hear how those chords work just based off that principle. You know, so if we play start to hear how those chords work, right? I mean, a lot of songs are 1, 4, 5. People talk about 1, 4, 5, right? What does that mean? Well, 1 is the first chord correlated to the major scale. First always being a major. So we play a 1. In this case, we're in G. And then we go to a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is a C. 4 is always a major, so we play C. So if we listen to, okay, I'm playing the 1 here, and then I go straight to the C, right? Oh, it's starting to make sense, right? I'll slide up to a D, that's the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's also a major. So if we've got 1, 4, 5, 1. Millions of songs are written in a 1, 4, 5. Normally very happy sounding songs because they're all major chords, right? Because we've got first increment, major. We skip the 2 minor increments. So we skip the A minor. We skip the B minor. We go straight to the D major because it's the 4th increment. We also go to the 5th increment, which is also major. It's a 1, 4, 5. Right? Okay, so beyond that, what's after 5? 6. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now 6 is a minor, and 6 is a very important minor because you'll hear people talk about relative minors in certain keys. So the 6th increment of G major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that 6th note what's that? That's an E. The 6 is a minor, so we play a minor chord based off the root note of E. Alright? Now I'm playing it up here because it's easier for you to see the basic E minor chord. But I could also play it off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's why G works with E minor. It's the most fitting sounding minor within a major scale or a major diatonic progression. If I'm in the key of A, what is the relative minor of A? Well, it's the sixth interval of the major scale. So how do we work that out? Okay, well, I'm playing an A major. Let's find the sixth interval of the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. What's that? It's an F sharp, right? So if I play an F sharp based off the root note of F sharp, which is the 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the key of A, if I play a minor chord, that's going to be the relative minor of A. See how it works? See how it fits? I can play it down here too. That's an F sharp. So I play the minor off the F sharp. Right? So back to G. Okay, let's go back to G. We were in G. So now we've worked out, okay, the intervals are the root note of the chord that works within the theory of 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, 7 minor 7 flat 5, but I'll get to that. 8 back to the original key that you started with, or chord that you started the key that you're in. So let's say I want to make a little bit of a progression or a song, make up a song based on that principle. Okay, well, not always, but most of the time songs will start with the key, the first key, the number 1 of the progression. So if we're in G, a lot of songs will start in G. They don't have to, but a lot of times they will. So let's say we want to make a song in G, but we don't want to make it, we don't want it so simple. We want to sort of throw a minor in there. So okay, well, I'm looking at G, that's the 1. Let's go to the 4. Now, let's say I want a minor in there. Probably the best one to use would be the relative minor. What's the relative minor of G? Well, it's E minor. We already know that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. So let's go from the 1 to the 4. Let's go to the relative minor, the E minor. Well, we've counted up. We know that's an E minor, so we can play an E minor anywhere. We can play an open chord, right? So we've got G, C, which is the 4th. We can play an E minor, which is the 6th. Now, how do we want to resolve back to the 1 without going straight back to it? Well, the 5 chord is normally a really good chord to do that. So then we could go to the 5 chord. What's the 5 chord? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's that note? Oh, that's a D. So 5 is major. Okay, so we play a D major. So let's say, okay, so we've got the 1, the 4, the relative minor, and then we go to the 5. And you can hear it wants to come back to the 1. I mean, that's a very common progression. But at least you understand where it's coming from. So what about the 7th of the scale? Okay, well, the 7th is kind of a bit of an anomaly, right? It's called a minor 7 flat 5 chord. And it's not used very much in pop music these days. While it's a great chord, there's a lot of tension behind it. So it's not really used a lot. So the 7th, we'll go through it anyway. The 7th of G. We're in G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What note is that? Well, that's an F sharp. So I have to play an F sharp minor 7 flat 5, right? Which is going to sound like this. And you can hear that wants to resolve to the 1, right? The 7. Incidentally, it repeats every 4 frets with exactly the same fingering, but that's another story. But I wouldn't worry about the 7th at this point, right? Now the 8th is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's the same as the 1, right? So it's going to be the same chord. It's going to be a G chord if we're in G. Right? So if we go through all of them using that principle of 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, relative minor, 7, don't worry about it, 8 octave. And if we know a major scale, let's say we're in the key of B, totally different key. As long as we know that major scale, we can base every chord off every interval. As long as we know the major scale, doesn't matter where we play it. As long as we know what key we're in, if we use the major scale, then we can assign every note of the major scale to a chord using that equation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor. And we can build chords just based off one note. So A, play A major. Next note. You don't even have to know what the notes are. You can just look at, okay, if I look there and that's a major, I know that's the second increment. I don't even have to know that that's a B minor. I can just look at it and go, okay, first one's major, second one's minor, third one's minor, fourth one's major, you know. I can work it out like that. I don't even have to know what the notes are. I mean, it's handy to know what the notes are, but you don't even have to know them. As long as you know what the first note is of the key that you're in. And then you can start mixing and matching the chords within that diatonic progression that are going to work. Keep in mind that the 5 chord always feels like it's naturally going to come back to the 1 chord. Wants to go back, doesn't it? So what I did there was I played the 1. I skipped the second one. I went straight to the third one. Third one's, it has to be a minor chord, so I play C sharp minor. Then I'd play the 4th. Then you could go back to the 1. I'm going to the 6th now, the relative minor. Right. You can mix and match them. Go to the 4. Back to the 1. Okay, I want to make it sound sad now. So what do? I'll play F sharp minor, because I know F sharp minor is the 6th interval from the major scale. All right. Four. 1. So 1. I'm going to go to the 3rd. I'm going to go to the 4th, major. I'm going to go back to the 1. And then I want to make it a bit sad. That's the 6, the 4, the 5, major, back to the 1. So that's what makes diatonic progressions work. All based off one note within the major scale. Each note is the root note of a chord that needs to be played within the equation of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and it's going to work every time. Let's say I want to work out the chord family of the key of C. Okay, well, I have to first find the note C. There's the note C, right? I have to play a major chord based off that root note C, right? And then I have to play the intervals of the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, I've got all the notes there, starting on the C. The C is a major. 1, 2. Okay, the 2 is the root, which is a D. Now, the 2 is always a minor, so I play D minor. And then I go to the 3rd one. Do, re, mi. 3 has to be a minor, so that'll be an E minor. So we've got, right? The next note goes up a half step. Okay, what's that? Okay, well, that's an F. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. What are we going to do on the 4? What do we do on the 4th interval? Is it major or minor? Well, it's major. So we play a major chord based off the root note of the interval. C. D minor. The 3rd is an E, so it's an E minor. The 4th is an F. You could go down here and play an F, because we know you can play an F anywhere. It's still going to work within the chord. So instead of going all the way up there like that, we can change things. So we go 2, 3, 4. I know the next one's an F. So instead of going all the way up, as long as we know what chord that we're going to play based on that theory. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm running out of room there, so I don't want to have to keep going up here. So if I know that, okay, 1, 2, 3, minor, 4, major. What's that note there? Okay, well, that's an E, so that's an F, right? So I can go back down here and play an F, right? I always play it like that, but so you can see that's an F. So we've got C, D minor, E minor, F major. Then we can go to the 5th, which is a major. And then we can go to the 6th, which is a minor, and it's the relative minor. So if we look at that, okay, C. So we can see the C. We know that the A minor is, you probably already know that anyway, but that's why it's the relative minor. It's because it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's an A note. So it needs to be minor. It's the relative. The 6th is the relative minor to the 1. Now I know I'm sort of dumbing this down a lot. But, I mean, if you're learning this for the first time, I think I need to. So then once you know where all the chords are, or what chords are relative to a certain key, you can start playing them sort of anywhere. Okay, one thing I want to mention is that the 5 chord, even though it's major, it's really a 7th chord. So when we play the 5 chord, let's say we're in G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chord. If we change that major to a 7th, 1, 2, 3, 4, it gives it even more tension to come back to the 1, right? Right? So whenever you play the 5 chord, you can always play it as a dominant 7th chord. And if you want to spice up or just change the flavor a little bit of these diatonic progressions, there's also a formula that can use, right? And that's using major 7th and dominant 7th sound, right? So let's say the 1 chord is a G. Well, on the 1, you can also use that as a major 7th, right? And it just sounds so much nicer. I mean, listen to the difference. That's just a regular triad, right? But if I play a major 7th, that's the same as playing a natural major. But if we're playing a minor 7th, see how it just sounds a little more jazzy, a little more R&B, a little smoother? I'm not going to explain how to play a major 7th. That's another lesson. But just know that when you play the 1, when you play the 4, which is also a major, you can use major 7ths, right? Here's the difference between using it just normally and with major 7ths. This sounds nicer, doesn't it? So when you're writing songs or you want to create chords to songs, remember that the 1, you can always play a major 7th instead of just your regular boring old, triad. When you hit the 4, you can use a major 7th. Right? But when you hit the 5 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you play major 7th there, it just doesn't sound right? Because it's the dominant chord, which means that we have to play a 7th, not a major 7th, a 7th, right? It's D, so we play. That 7th, right? So the 5th is always just the major chord or dominant 7th chord. So to break it down, the 1st can be just a regular G chord, right? But you can also use a major 7th, which spices it up. The 4th, you can use a major 7th. The 5th, you want to use a dominant 7th. And you can just use a normal chord as well, but don't use the major 7th on the 5th. This doesn't work, all right? Now, I've covered the major chords. What about the minor chords? Well, I'll go back to G. Now, the second, we all know is A minor, right? You can play the A minor chord because the second interval is a minor. But we can also do a minor 7. We can play G. We don't have to play the A minor strictly. We can play an A minor 7. So if we play an A minor 7, it's the same as playing an A minor, but it's just a tiny bit different flavour. It's kind of less dark than a minor. We can play the third, 1, 2, 3, instead of playing the strict minor. We can also play a minor 7. So together we've got major, minor 7, minor 7, major. Now even on that major, let's change that to a major 7. So we've got major 7th, minor 7, minor 7, major 7. Just a nicer flavour. So for each of these, we can play sort of slightly different chords that are going to give it a bit of a different feel, whatever you feel like, right? Another thing is you don't have to follow the chords from the interval. It's a good way to learn where they are, but once you have them in your head, you don't have to follow the interval and play it off that route, as long as you know what it is. Like, for example, I know, we all probably know that if I'm playing in G, I can play a C there. And this is all open chords, right? And they just work, right? But they work because they're based off that interval. Because we've got G, we play a C, D, like millions of songs are written. But the reason they work is because that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is a major, and back to the 1, 1, 4, 5. So we know C, G, D. We all know those, right? Let's say we're playing in D. We all know that. We all know we can play an A and a G there. But they're all based. It's a 1, 4, 5, 1. All based off that same principle. So as long as you're playing those chords within the formula of the major scale intervals, it's going to work, no matter where you play the keys. So if I know that the 1, 4, 5, I don't always have to play it in that position. If I'm playing a D, I mean a 1, 4, 5 in G, well, I know that's a G, C, and a D. So I can play a G up here. I can play a C. Go back to the... You get my meaning? And we're all kind of, we get used to that. We don't even think about it after a while, but the principle is it's all based off the major scale. So you can play them anywhere, right? You don't have to follow all the way up, as long as you know what they are. And I just played through the whole diatonic progression, right? I mean, let's play it here, A flat, right? Kept them all close to where my fingers are. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So once you learn where they are, you can play them anywhere. So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is a very important concept in Western music because everything's based off it. I mean, you can go to a whole bunch of other places in there. You get into jazz and stuff, but it all relates back to the major scale. Anyway, I hope that helps, guys. Good luck. I'm out.